Hey everybody, welcome to my favorite shitty movie. It's a very exciting night. Crix Lee is back on the show. We always love having her, and she brought this movie, Bloodsucking Bastards, to us, which I had not seen before, and I thoroughly enjoyed this corporate vampire horror comedy. I'm telling you right now, corporate horror comedies is one of my favorite sub horror genres. I really like it. It's right up there with the Airbnb horror movies you see these days. Those are good sub genres. So I'm very excited to talk about this movie. It's fun, it's funny, and it's short. So even if you don't like it, it's over an hour 25. So I don't know what people would complain about. I don't know why this movie didn't do well. It doesn't make sense. The actors are very fun and engaging, and it's very silly. Maybe that's it. A lot of people they don't like silly stuff, but I love silly stuff. So this was right up my alley. And later in the show, I'll probably drop some other corporate horror comedy titles for discussion. But before we get into it, I have to bring on my co-host. She just got back from Washington, D.C., which is, I don't know, the nation's capital, or I don't know where she went. But she's back, and here she is, Tracy Mercer.
Hey, Todd. Hello. I did. I went to D.C. Good old Hillary Clinton has a new book out, Something Lost, Something Found, Reflections on Life, Love, and Liberty. Seemed like an interesting time to see her. And plus, we got to meet her and get her picture and stuff. So, yeah, so Kim and I went to that, and it was very moving. And being in the nation's capital at this kind of inflection point, also very interesting. Rented bikes and just rode around seeing like the Jefferson Memorial, MLK's memorial. I'd never seen that in person. It was gorgeous and really powerful. And FDR's memorial, really, it's my favorite. Democrat. Turns out the New Deal is a good idea. Middle class should be allowed to, do well. And I think that's right. Anyway, it was just great. So yeah, I love that. But it was a really quick trip. But I'm so excited that Crix is back because she always brings the coolest movies. But also, she did the thing that is so rare on this show where neither you nor I had seen the film. So I love it when guests bring new things for us. I think the world is in a moment, and I think anyone who's ever had to work in an office will really like this movie. Vampires are always a great metaphor for all seasons. This film is certainly no exception. And I agree with what you said at the top of the show. I feel like I love horror comedy hybrids. They're very hard to do. You have to strike a tone and stick with it. And for every Ghostbusters and every Frighteners and every Tremors, there's like 100 that don't work necessarily. This one, I agree with you, is surprisingly delicious. It's funny. It's smart. And I just think it deserved a bigger rollout.
It kind of crosses the line into silly.
Yes.
There's which I am 100%, like I said, I'm 100% behind it, but I feel like sometimes that's what gets people. Like, I have no idea why, like, you take a horror comedy like Slither, like that movie, and that at the time, I remember critics saying that this is the death nail in the horror comedy coffin. There'll be no more horror comedies after this. It's so bad. And I was like, I don't know what movies you guys saw.
Slither was awesome, and Nathan Fillion always is the right answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Great cast just across the board. Michael Rooker and Elizabeth Banks, and just it's endless. And that other guy who's always in James Gunn stuff. What's his name? Greg Henry. Greg Henry. Yeah. That guy is awesome. But yeah, I just don't understand, the resistance to it. But Slither's silly and gross at the same time. And this, this doesn't have the budget to be as gross as Slither, but it has the gore.
Jeff liked it too. The Office with vampires. I agree, and I feel like there's equal parts, silly version and Gary and Ross, I guess Gen X version called right, the Ben Younger of yesteryear. But I feel like it's Office Space. It's got a lot of humor, but ultimately, and it's where to suck your soul. And I think this film gets the humor of that right with literally like you think it's going to be Office Space, right down to the cast and all of it. But it goes to fun places. And to your point, I mean, I got no hate, an hour and 25, 26-minute film that keeps it together, keeps it tight. And it's weird too, because I love Cabin in the Woods. Is one of my all-time favorites. Like the last 20 years, I think it's like off the charts brilliant. The great Drew Goddard really rocking that. And I feel like this one is almost like, especially because you had the lead, who's also the lead in Cabin in the Woods, who, you know, Fran, who I also love in the TV set, which I think is an underrated indie gem. He's terrific in these films. Like he's really good, but I feel like you have little, you know, you've got like, you know, what is it? Joel Murray. You've got Matthew Lillard goes up for a cameo. You know, there's some really nice touches in this film. And I'm just so glad that Crix brought it to us, because I think this is one of those things where we can lift this. So longtime listeners and viewers, check out this really fun movie that we're going to talk to tonight. We should bring Crix up and let's get into it.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Crix Lee back to the show.
Crix!
Hey.
Hello.
Hello.
When did you find this movie? Because I'm sort of surprised, given my penchant for corporate horror comedy, that I had not. This wasn't on my radar.
I want to say it was during lockdown. That's what I want to say, because I was just going through weird movies, and I too was a fan of Fran's from Cabin in the Woods, which really funny. The reason why he's wearing so much clothing is because he was more in shape than the rest of the guys, and so because he does like power yoga and shit, so they were like, we need to put more layers on you because you are far too ripped to be a stoner.
You don't seem like you're in like an office setting.
Yeah, it's weird. It's but yeah, so I was just curious, and and then Joey Kern, who people call, you know, he's the not Sean William Scott guy, who everybody knows from Super Troopers for the most part. Yeah. But he's also, you know, he was in Cabin Fever, and he was married to Jennifer Goodwin. And, you know, he's done his own things. And I think this might be one of my favorite movies of his as well. But it was just funny seeing like, oh, it's that guy. Oh, it's that guy. Oh, it's that guy.
There's so many of that guys in this. Yeah.
Yeah. And especially in the background, the comedians in the background, like those three guys that they work with in those cubicles, you would always be like, I know who that is, but I can't put my finger on it. But I think I just wanted something dumb to watch, and this turned out not to be that. But I was looking for something, and it smelled to me like Workaholics with vampires.
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, I think it does.
Where the guy was like, he's like, "Fuck you, I'm staying late because high speed internet's free," and you know, in the Workaholics when the guys have
in the office.
Yeah, and Workaholics when the guy, I can't remember. I think they had to have their house sprayed or something, and so they all had like a slumber party in the office, but they ate too many mushrooms, and then people were breaking into the office, and that was the kind of stuff that I wanted. And that's what I think
this movie is. You said you were looking for a dumb movie. This movie isn't it, but I think this movie manages to be dumb in the smartest way, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
and that's the kind of silliness I like.
It's very like National Lampoonish.
Yeah.
Way. Yeah. You know, because you're getting these POVs, and even in the casting is hilarious because the girl who plays Zabeth, I believe her name is Elaine, and the girl that plays Elaine, her name is actually Zabeth. And that's just such a credit. It's a clever cast thing to do, and then like, okay, that's your character, and then to do things like you said, sliding Matthew Lillard in there for 30 seconds, you know, it's
never a bad idea to throw,
because you're like, hey, and then he's like, we got to get the fuck out of here. So
gotta go. Yeah, with the
it was enough. You didn't have to like find his way out of the scene. It was just like, they're like, you need to leave, and they're like, yeah, we should go, and that was it. We're not like, is he coming back or anything like that. It was just like boop boop.
Yeah, it's
also,
great stuff.
Like, the director takes, like, was it Dr. God?
You know what, that name is fucking hilarious, and I hope I meet him someday, or her.
It's a him. It's Brian, who might be listening. If you're listening, Brian, after the fact, I know your friend Chance told you about this a little too late to join us. But just to get this out of the way, for Todd and I, this is the first time seeing the movie. Loved it. Can't wait to talk to it. So buckle in. We love your darling, and here we are. So, Crix, so it's been a minute. So just to refresh people at home, what for you defines a great shitty movie? And by way of that answer, with all the movies out there, you went to this one, which we all agree is not shitty. It's super fun, and y'all should be seeing it. It's on Prime. It's super easy. How did you pick this one, and what's your definition?
A movie that I'd want to watch over and over and over again.
Okay.
Where it almost becomes like a comfort. Like Bob's Burgers movie is not a shitty movie, but it's a comfort because I'm neurodivergent. It's just comfortable. So like I'll play it once or twice a day. I may watch it, I may not. It's just, I don't know why this family, because this is one of the most weirdest fucking families ever created in a sitcom. Like, you know, the kids are young and they're like doing all these weird adventures and saying ass to their parents. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I would have had like all the flavor slapped out of my mouth if I ever said ass to my father like that. So yeah, it's a comfort thing. And like Bloodsucking Bastards, I always come back to every couple months or so because I'm just like, I just want something funny. And I
love that.
One of my favorite Pedro Pascal.
Yes.
Without the mustache. And it's funny.
Yeah, well, I'm sure the mustache was unavailable. So
yeah, well, I'm wondering like when this movie was actually shot, because this movie came out the same year that he was on Game of Thrones.
Okay.
Right.
Was that before or after the crime show? Same year?
It was the same year.
Wasn't he on a crime show?
Oh yeah, way back in the and then he was on Buffy.
Yeah.
But he was using different names at the time, so I think it was like NCIS.
One of the things that I appreciated about this movie, and it was fun because I love him. I think everyone's kind of found him now. It's like Jennifer Coolidge has this moment because of White Lotus, but she's been brilliant for 20 years now. People are like, oh yeah.
But I'm so fucking pissed they killed her off like that. That made me mad. Spoiler.
I know. But what's great about seeing him in this, in kind of the pre-Renaissance where people were fully read into him and got it, he comes in literally like a star does, and he's got so much energy. And
Burn Notice.
It's just like, yeah, Burn Notice.
That was the movie. But you know what's stupid is I actually went to that junket at Comic-Con, and I think he was there with Bruce Campbell, but like all I heard was Bruce Campbell. You get 2 minutes with Bruce Campbell. So that's like, I was like, fuck everybody else.
But one of the things that I think is really fun, and I love this, and I've always loved this as a movie buff, because I'll see something, and I did this even when I had to ride my bike down to the library and like look up stuff on the microfiche. Yes, kids, we used to have microfiche. I'm that old. And I would be like, what have they been in? And I'd just go rent every single thing. And I'd catch up. Mm-hmm. Like I remember I was going through a Judd Nelson crush because of The Breakfast Club, and so I found Fandango, as all 13-year-old girls did.
What was the one where he pretended to be he was going to school for something the class
Making the Grade.
Was it Making the Grade?
Making the Grade, yeah. With an unfortunate musical interlude called Body Talk. Trust me, believe me later. Yes, loved him so much. But I went back and there was like this film called Fandango. I go, oh, I'm going to rent Fandango. And then I rent Fandango and I went, oh my God, this guy who played Jake in Silverado, who's this Kevin Costner guy? He's really hot, right? And so that I watched that a bunch of times. And I think Fandango is a truly great film. It's the first Kevin Reynolds, Costner collaborated and Blue made it back when we could do original things for a budget. And then I started paying attention to Kevin Costner, and then I started doing this. And what I feel like is like if you like Mr. Pascal, you can see in this movie the guy's a star. He walks on and you get it. And there's a thing where he's a great actor, I think, but like he has the zhuzh, and it's like that thing where if an actor gets the right role at the right time, things can happen. But I love seeing before they were super famous. Like if you weren't watching Game of Thrones and you didn't cleave to all the TV appearances, like on film, when this came out, he wasn't the guy yet. But yet when you see this, it completely makes sense where he's going. And I love that thing where no matter what the budget, no matter what the auspices of the talent involved, an actor sometimes will just pop. And it's that moment. I remember seeing Alec Baldwin in Married to the Mob. I'm like, that guy.
Oh my God.
That guy. Right? But you knew, you're like, he has something. And it didn't.
Did you see the Joel Schumacher movie Tigerland?
Yeah.
Yes.
Same.
That
Colin
was
Farrell's in that one as well.
That doesn't happen to me very much where I recognize that. I'm really bad at recognizing early stars, but that was the movie where I was like, this movie is okay, but this guy is really interesting. So,
yes.
Yeah.
And I love
that. And Pedro is the kind of person like, okay, I haven't seen season 2 of Mandalorian or 3 or wherever we are, and I still haven't seen The Last of Us because I'm saving it, much like I'm saving The Umbrella Academy. But it's like if he's in it, I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna check it out. And it's really kind of weird and odd, but Narcos season 3, and 2 and 3. They're really big to me, and they're also comfort things because it's just like you get to see Pedro as Javier Pena like really start to progress. And you can start to see like in the first season he's kind of funny, in the second season it's getting a little bit more serious, in the third season he has no sense of humor anymore.
No.
And it's really like those are the kind of things I like to see, a progression of a character and having to play a real person on top of that. Like if you guys have seen Narcos in the last episode of season 2, when they get Pablo, the 2 old guys that are clinking beers at the bar, those are the 2 real guys. It's Javier Pena and the other guy.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and so it's. Yeah, and that was really interesting to see, and even in this, like, I was just like, what a douchebag. Yeah, I think it's the first time I was just like, what a fucking douchebag, dude. But he's also got that sex appeal, like even when he's a dick. Like, I'm sure he has no problem turning people without having to glamour them in this movie. I wouldn't think he did, but
yeah, take that, Robert Pattinson. Your little
vampire. Fucker.
So Craig, I'm going to assume, which is probably a false assumption, but if Todd and I both have missed this movie, I'm going to assume some of our listeners, our majority, may not have seen it either. Walk us through, like, kind of what in the hell is going on in this movie, so the kids at home can play along.
Okay, so Fran Kranz, who is the guy in the paisley tie, and then Joey Kern's next to him. They're best friends. They all work at this, like I said, workaholics type situation where they're trying to sell different things like phallicide and, blow up ball things or whatever. Just the weirdest shit that people call for. And they're like, would you like to buy this? And even one of the lines was like, give me your name, your address, and your social security number, and I'll take care of it.
Totally. It's a throwaway line. It's so brilliant.
Yeah, and it was just like, and that's what makes Joey Kern like, it's like when you don't pay attention to Joey Kern, like he does the weirdest stuff. But anyway, so, it's that typical type of office situation, and, Fran's character and the girl that's in HR, they were dating, and the night before she said, I love you.
Amanda, is that her name, Amanda?
Yeah, and everybody calls her Mandy. And she's like, this scene right here, she goes, I love you. And he just kind of looks at her in shock and goes, no.
Yeah.
And so this all unfolds. Yeah.
That's
but
classic.
It all folds inside the office. And then, so Fran's character is thinking, I'm going to get promoted. I'm going to get the position that they're looking to fill. Right. And Joel Murray, who plays his boss Ted, is brilliant. Like, if you've ever seen Better Off Dead, like my favorite, we were talking about favorite lines on Reddit, and I said, well, my favorite one is when John Cusack's about to throw up on the boat, and they're like, take a nice deep breath, and he just like, shoves a chili dog under his face and goes, "Chili dog." Like, so Joel is like, so Ted's like, you guys gotta quit fucking around and get this done. And then they're like, okay, so we need to have a meeting. And then it turns out that they've hired Pedro Pascal's character Max, and Max went to college with God, I can't remember their character names, Joey Kern's character and Fran Kran. So they all went to school together, but Max had banged Fran's girlfriend, so he decided to get him busted for cheating. And so Max comes back and it's just like, "Hey, buddy, hey, how's it going?" But you start to hear things and rumblings, and you know, it's like, "I thought I was getting the job. Fuck you for bringing this guy." And it just starts to go from there. Like the first thing out of Max's mouth is like, you know, total sales this month should be $1 million. We're gonna go for $1 million. I mean, that right there should just indicate that some weird shit's going on, because the only way you're gonna do that is if you can work day and night and you don't need to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but it's also funny because, like, again, Pascal, who's such a good actor, is also playing this for laughs. So he's like, $1 million. You know, and but the fact that he can just do that, and you're like, oh my God. Like,
and the choices that he makes.
Nothing. It's like The Office. What do? We don't really know. Does it matter? It's like, this is like Glenn Glagg and Ross, the short bus edition. That's what this Office is. You know.
And the best part of it is they include the janitor, and who nobody remembers his name until about the end, and then Frank, who's a big black security guard who kind of reminds me of Dwight Schrute, because he's always taking energy drinks. He's like, "I'm gonna be on point," but he's actually watching Kitten.
He drinks so much Red Bull. That's all he does.
Yeah, and he's like, "I have to be sharp. I have to be sharp." And you know, and he looks around and he's watching cat videos, and he also refers to Fran's character as Colonel Sanders. And, you know, so every time, and he's like, yeah, that's funny. I haven't seen that before.
And then the payoff is like, you know, your third character is like, you know, deep in the third act. Oh my God, it's like the chicken guy. I just got that. Ha ha ha. It's like so
I don't want to forget though, because this is like first act. You're introduced to so many characters in this brief first act, and there's the guy whose cat
Dave
has a cleft palate.
Yeah, Dave.
Yes.
Can I get the money from you for the
pool? And it's always about his cat, though.
I know. It's like my cat has a cleft.
Like my cat is allergic to different kinds of air.
And it's always like you guys owe me $20 for the pool.
He's like, "Hey, can I get $40 from you? Fuck off."
Yeah, and Pedro's like, "Dude, like really, you're doing great work on the pool in the office," and you're like, "What?" It's like. It's so, but again, it's almost like stoner sitcom comedy throughout.
Yeah, and it's also like, because you can also see these archetypes, and for me as an actor, and Todd, you probably do this too, but like when you see a character in a movie, you automatically will think of another character. And Dave's character reminded me of Cameron Manheim in Romy and Michelle. Like every time she would go up to Janine Garofalo's character, she's like, "Send me your baby," and she's like, "Ooh, fuck off, Toby." And she was always telling her to fuck off. And that's how I saw Dave. I saw Dave, like, as soon as that guy was like, "Fuck off," like, he's the fuck off guy, and nobody respects him.
Nobody. But here's the thing that's also fun, because this is ostensibly an Office Place comedy with horror, right? So there's all the archetypes you would associate in a typical Office comedy. But he's the guy, to your point, the fuck off guy. But then the fuck off guy gets to be empowered when he's turned into a vampire, and he gets to be a little butch and a little like, "Hey," and you're like, "Whoa."
When he does something like TikTok, motherfucker.
I'm like, where did that guy come from? He's finding his inner coolness. So like even that zombie like vampire guy has like a character arc in a comedy. I'm like, this is somebody who wrote and directed this. They care. And it's like points, you know, and this is why there's little grace notes like that throughout this film that elevate it beyond the horror comedy films that we know we probably all watch because we like it, but they don't necessarily work as well as this one. And I just think that there's this little attention to details, and it's brilliantly cast. So, like, you know, it's a run.
there's so many scenes that should be throwaway scenes, but they're not.
Yeah.
Like between Joey Kern's character and Andrew. And when they're sitting there throwing candy bars at each other like they would do any other day, and he's like, well, what if I kill you? It's like, what should we, well, so Rochambeau, well, I'm not going to let you kill me, and you can't eat me, but I don't want to kill you. And they're just like throwing candy bars at each other during the, like, trying to keep the record going. And then it was like Rochambeau. And that dude was just hilarious. Like the guy who played Andrew, when he becomes potential management material to Max, and you see all the shit going down in the background, and the two are just standing in the doorway just going, so shouldn't we be taking care of this? He's like, oh no, you want to regulate, you want to relegate, you don't want to have to do everything yourself. And they're having like this normal conversation while there's like blood bags exploding everywhere. Yeah, right here. And he's like, shouldn't, it's like, well, if we kill them all, then, and he's like totally treating him right then and there.
But again, this is like Pedro's perfect comment time. Is like, well, only if you do micromanaging, I think. And like this chaos is happening, but it's almost like the indie version of Cabin in the Woods, that like last Grand Guignol where the elevator's open and every creature comes out and starts killing each other in that lobby.
Right. Yeah. And speaking of which, that also kind of happens in this movie where he's like, you didn't think I would come here before consulting legal. And then the elevator doors open and like 6 blood-sucking lawyers come out.
Oh, Jeff Luce has a good comment. His biggest criticism is there's no music because they had no money. I think this kind of movie should have a killer soundtrack. It's
to be fair, Project didn't have a soundtrack either, and it made millions.
No, but I know what.
Was there no score? There was no score.
There's a couple like elevator. There's like an elevator.
I feel like I heard some stings of music.
There's an elevator gag where we do Muzak, and then there's a couple.
He does it both times, Joey Kern. Whether or not he's covered in blood, he's just in the back going.
Yeah, and then there's in the early scenes, there's kind of almost like it's. And I remember noticing because it was so bad. It was like temp office music, and then that goes away. Jeff has good ears, so there's early scenes where there's like plug-in, cheap, probably free music, and then there's that. But there's really not a score in the traditional sense to this movie.
I thought there was like some very light scoring in some of the sequences.
In the early moments, you hear kind of like generic. It felt like when I was working on a scripted show.
Here we go, music department.
We would buy. Like cheap music.
There was a composer, but it seemed,
but it's.
I think it's
a composer, but maybe it was a friend.
But I think it's there. There's a scene that I'm thinking of specifically that maybe I studied to a great degree for some reason. But I do remember like there were very slight stings of music during a phone sequence where our hero is talking to Pedro Pascal. And Amanda's in the apartment with Pedro Pascal, and then there's the vampires are trying to break down the door, and I did hear stings of music in that.
But Jeff is right. I know what he's saying. It's like it feels like a cheap music library that you would license, and there's 2 or 3 moments in the first act. There's a couple moments, and then there's the elevator gag. But as a traditional score. Like there isn't one, and that's
there's no stings. There's no like leading up to stuff. Yeah,
I'm dealing with that right now in my movie, so I was very conscious of like, oh, they got the cheap music library used on my Discovery show. I recognize that. It's like
It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia ripped theirs off of that song it was free. It was like free domain song, and that is their theme song. We found it on the internet.
And by the way, there's no shame to that. Like one of my favorite, I mean, obviously we all know that I have an Aliens addiction, right? Especially the second one. But like if you listen to the sound design in Aliens and then you watch Mike Hodges' Terminal Man, you will realize that they have the same, like the doors are the same as the power loader and all this stuff because it was a really cheap UK music library and sound design thing that they like. So even 20th Century Fox, 1986 Aliens, they were like, I don't know, it's second time director. They weren't playing. You had James Horner's score, which Fox would then repurpose in Die Hard, the next year, right? Because we did those things back in the day. But if you listen to the sound design in Aliens, it is a very famous UK library that is best used in the 60s and 70s with Mike Hodges films. And it's crazy. Once you've seen Terminal Man after Aliens, you're like, holy crap, that's like get away from her. No,
I think the important takeaway for filmmakers here, though, is that it can be done.
Yes.
The low budget movie I did, Fuzz Track City, the director Steve Hicks had his list of of songs that he wanted to incorporate that would go along, and he employed Adam Blau as his music supervisor. He also does scores for shows like You're the Worst and stuff like that. But Adam just led him down this path of, here are all these songs that are like those songs, but that are just buried and underground and don't cost very much, if anything at all.
And I would also add, I want to give props to my partner in crime here, Mr. Todd Anderson. When he shoots, edits, directs, and stars in the Anderson family reenactments, he often, famously, I would argue, brilliantly does like whatever it is, he'll do like some scat.
Kind of like that.
The algorithm can't shut our asses down because Todd's like, and it's like, but it's that he does that himself, which is what this film was having to do because they didn't have this, right? So, props.
One correction: the girl that plays Zabeth is named Yvette, but I thought it was like a switch. But no, I mean, like even looking at a film like James Bond, they play the theme song over and over and over throughout the movie, and I don't know why it took me so long to catch up to this, but I think it was because of Six Underground. The song was, they borrowed a sample from Goldfinger. The Goldfinger scores like boom, 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 boom. And I didn't catch it until I saw Goldfinger again like a couple of years ago, and I was like, wait a second, they just play Goldfinger. They just play the song all throughout the fucking movie. And it took me so long to catch up to it. And I'm like, every Bond movie is like this, which is sad because some of those Bond songs really fucking suck. And then you have to hear it over and over and over.
Some of them are great, though. It's
James Bond. I love, like Bono. Like people don't. Bono's actually written two of the biggest Bond themes, and one of them wasn't even theirs. They wrote Goldeneye. He wrote Goldeneye for Tina Turner.
That's right. And I don't think that was a good one.
Really, that's probably my favorite. That one and the Shirley Bassey.
Yeah, I would say Shirley Bassey, except, and it's funny because Bassey hated Moonraker because the lyrics make no sense. But I have to say, because of Moonraker, I'm like, she just sells it for me. So I actually like her Moonraker.
My favorite is Goldfinger.
That's a great one.
Dude,
Nobody does it better, though. Nobody does
Diamonds
it
Are Forever.
That's Carly Simon, right?
Yeah.
But,
Diamonds Are Forever? No, that's Shirley Bassey. Spy Who Loved Me.
He used to say this Spy Who Loves Me is Carly Simon. But like even like Diamonds Are Forever is like the biggest, I'm sorry, but like song is hand job. Like the lyrics, you can't unhear it once you listen to Stroke It and Caress It. You're like, really, Shirley? Like it's no, we know what's happening. We're here for that.
And because she sings so loud too, it's not like stroke it, like stroke it.
It's like 5 octaves. You're like, dude, you are canceled, lady. I love that how she works. But
the hand job songs get you canceled? No. Cyndi Lauper is doing her farewell tour right now.
Hey, she bop, okay?
She bop.
I just saw an interview where she had to explain it, or she was explaining it to someone who wasn't really familiar with her catalog. And I was more interested in the fact that Girls Want to Have Fun was originally a male song until she did her own tweaks on it.
That's right.
And made it the fucking female anthem right up there with I Am Woman.
And that's what's also interesting. I mean, going back to Tina Turner, who did I would argue not my favorite Bond song, but Tina Turner's What's Love Got to Do With It, not her song, but the way she orchestrated it and rearranged it and sang it, it becomes an anthem like Cindy's, someone else's song that she just, and you're like, oh my God. And it just, maybe sometimes it takes a smart woman.
All right, quick survey. Worst Bond theme. What's the worst one, in your opinion?
The Living Daylights. Sheryl Crow.
Living Daylights. Was that like Aha? Is that?
Oh, not The Living Daylights. It's Until That Day. Blah, blah, blah. That's how it sounded when I was walking into because me and my friend were super high, and we got in late. So when we walked in, the theme was already going, and all I heard was Sheryl Crow screaming in my fucking ear, and I was like, dude, I'm about to freak out.
See, I feel bad because the one that I
Tomorrow Never Dies, I think.
I'm
going to say, the song.
And I love her endorsement of Kamala Harris, but with all due respect, I think the Billie Eilish Bond song is so forgettable.
I've not heard it.
You can't hum it. You can't remember it. It's not good, in my opinion.
Which one was that? Which Daniel Craig was that?
It was, I can't even remember. It was so bad. But it's like the one where I'm like, oh, I really want to like it, and I don't. And I think Mike White does one that doesn't work either, that I don't care about.
Who's Mike White?
Oh, that one's all right. I like that one all right.
Can you hum it?
For me, the worst one is...
No Time to Kill.
No, Die Another Day.
No, it was Billy's.
Die Another Day is Madonna, I think.
Madonna. Yeah. You know what? I'm okay with that one. The movie.
Yeah,
it's better than the movie.
I don't like that one. I think it's very bland and corporate sounding.
But you don't really like Madonna anyway, though.
I've worked with Madonna. Madonna loves me. I can be
careful with her. The Will and Grace episode absolutely did.
The way that we're talking about.
Sorry. A good factoid. The Man with the Golden Gun theme song was supposed to be the Alice Cooper song of the same name, which is on Muscle of Love. Due to the Cooper camp not getting the song to the filmmakers in time, they went with the Lulu song. Okay, thank you for that. Good, Jeff. He always has the best trivia. Love you, Jeff.
But the way that we're talking about, like, how a song is associated with someone, even if someone else wrote it, like Candy Burris, who was in a girl group called Escape back in the day, she wrote Survivor, she wrote Bills. Like, she's just sitting in the back making millions off of these. She wrote TLC's, I want to say Creep, but she also wrote for TLC. And it's like, when people think of those songs, they don't think of her. They think of the person who sang it. And that's fine as long as you're getting paid for it. And that's kind of like corporate business too, is like,
right,
you may be doing all the work, but the face guy is going to be the one that fucking does the pitch.
Also, sometimes you can be a boss artist and have someone reinterpret your work. I mean, I think famously, Dolly Parton's "I Will Always Love You," great song. But when Whitney Houston sang it and rearranged it for The Bodyguard, it became that epic hit. It exponentially blew it up. But what I love about Dolly, which we should give points because Dolly is everything, she looked at how much money Whitney's version of her song was making, took all the bazillions that she got because her song, and literally donated to Black libraries in Black, like, traditional, like, community. Yeah. And like funded it and put all the money back into the community. And I was like, that's such a boss move. And to Dolly's credit, she's like, I hadn't heard it till it was on the radio and I was driving and I heard Whitney sing. Oh my God, she did it better. And it was like this very gracious artist to artist thing. And then she took the money for good. And it's like, and I feel like that's amazing. But again, we're on an amazing tangent. But yes, the Bond songs are not all created equal. This one didn't have any music for soundtracks. But going back to this movie, so Chris, talk us through, like, it's a pretty basic storyline, right? It's like, I didn't get the promotion, this and that. And just when you think it's like Office Slight, it's like this new guy comes in, I have a past, he fucked my girlfriend in college. I think he might be the head vampire and people might be turning. Talk us through what the hell is happening story-wise.
Okay. So, and just real quick, though, if you ever get a chance to watch, I can't remember what episode of The Great North it is, but at the end, Dulce Sloan sings the Anna, and she fucking nails it. And for those of you like, if you don't watch The Great North, Dulce Sloan is one of the reporters at The Daily Show. Okay. But yeah, so and the way that, I don't know if this was the director's idea or because it's the writer-director, right? So I don't know if this was whose idea it was, but it was really fucking genius, was the indications of red. So every time someone got turned, they would have some kind of red piece of clothing on, Or in Zabit's case, when she got taken out in the storage room, in the supply closet, you see red stripes on all the boxes. So there's this indication that people are getting weird. She's all of a sudden wearing, tons of fucking makeup, and she's got one of those pretty bras that has a strap across the top that does nothing but just makes you look nice. Yeah,
a lesbian for a sequence.
Yeah, and everyone who, and it's I think it's most evident in Dave, obviously, because as soon as he turns, glasses are gone. He's like, give me my money. Yeah. I mean,
he's
look
sort
at
of the first one, right?
Killer. He is the first one. Well, I mean, outside of legal. No, the janitor.
That we see him turn. It's
the janitor was first. So you don't see the janitor turn, but the janitor was first. And then,
well, you see the new guy. The janitor's already turned when we pick him up, and then this like nerd is like, they're like, go and take out the trash. These guys, right? So he goes down to the basement. We introduce, our guy and the already turned janitor because we need him to clean up, and then our dude is killed, right? Like,
the janitor ate him.
Yeah, we never knew he. Very good.
So that's kind of like, but that's like office life. It's like working here today, fucking fired tomorrow. Like, I had a friend who walked into his job, and they said something weird to him, and he goes, well, just mark me down as quit then, and just walked right out the fucking door. Like, that's normal. It's like an intern's there for like an hour and a half, and it's like an Orson Welles thing where the boss is just like, get the fuck out, because he just wants to fire one person to scare the shit out of everybody else,
But I also love the conceit that these guys, like The Office, like whatever, they're not really doing their jobs. They're all expendable. But like this guy is like there so he can play his little game. That the janitor's in the background. And of course, he gets completely destroyed. Speaking of Red.
My God. He was so funny too. He's like, you can hang around, but I'm going to jerk it. And he's like, so I'm going to need to be cleaned like here and here and here and a minute here. And I'm just like, bro. So I had to laugh because, I mean, dude, when girls talk to each other in private, I'll let you know that we are fucking gross. God, the difference between females and males is like, we're fucking gross in private when we're like next to each other, like in a group. Guys are fucking gross in public. Like, that's a guy saying that would not surprise me at all to another guy. Just the guys together, they're fucking gross to each other.
Don't care.
They
do not care.
But again, Fran gets to play it for laughs and horror because he's so good. He can do both at the same time. Right. And he's like, you guys, someone's been killed in the bathroom. And they all look at the bathroom and they all look confused. Obviously, the janitor has already turned because he's got that Robert Smith pallor. And then you do the reverse shot and it's been cleaned up. And so then, and I like that even with one quick setup, you get the idea that she's like, oh, Franny broke up with his hot girlfriend. Maybe I can have a sense of him. She gets attacked, she gets turned, this and that. And then you start to see your guy, right?
That's like TikTok, motherfucker. And then he's like, I have $20.
Now he has like a thing. He's like, by the way, Franny, you paid me your $20. Thank you for that. Like, he's still polite as a vampire. You're like, but those again, grace notes in a scene. It's very well written. But so then we get to this moment where like this guy, right, is like, oh shit.
Oh, Andrew.
I'm being attacked and then I'm being killed.
I just loved that he's like, when he spun the chair around the first time, I thought it was a fan because I had looked down and looked up, and then when it stopped, and I was just like, bro.
But that's also part of what I think is so delicious about this. They didn't have a lot of money, but the idea that they would take things that you would find in a common office and turn them into horror instruments, I think is super hilarious. Like, you actually have like Franny gets like the paper cutter.
Oh yeah, Evan, he's like,
which to be honest prefigures Megan, right? Who did the
same
thing in her film. But I like the idea that he's like, what about these little scissors? And they're like, what about the thing? And you're like, oh my God, you guys.
Yeah, he takes the little scissors and he goes, eat. He holds them.
It's so fun. But again, what also I think is a fun conceit about this, which maybe stood out for me from a story standpoint, is like everyone else is, oh yeah, dude, they're all vampires. Like, we do. And like our lead is like, am I the only one who didn't know that like you're all turning into vampires?
actually have a clip. If you show that photo again, I have a clip from this very scene.
Amazing.
Of course, as you know, it's not an actual clip from the movie because we don't want to get shut down for copyright infringement. So this is an Anderson family reenactment, and really take this one in because there's a cameo from Colby, my son, and he's going to college on Friday. We're driving him up there, so this is the last time you're getting Colby. But enjoy it.
Amanda, it's me. I'm at the office, and I just saw them kill Andrew, and now they're after me. And I think it's Max.
Oh, buddy, that hurts my feelings. You know, I'm sure Amanda is great in a crisis, but isn't this call more suited to 911?
What have you done with Amanda?
I just devoured her. Fabulous Osobuco. She's in the kitchen cleaning up right now. Oh, yeah. Get another bottle of wine as long as it's red.
What? Okay. All right, Max. You listen to me. Right now.
Do I hear banging?
Oh,
I mean, it's got to be on your end because there's nothing happening here. Yet.
Wait, are you on my phone?
Oh, it's Evan calling to tell me he's absolutely crushing the presentation. Do you want to talk to him?
No, it's okay.
Amanda! Sorry, you're stuck with me, buddy.
Oh, Max, I swear to God, if you lay one finger on her...
I think you need to concentrate on your own problems, bro. But I'll give Amanda your best.
No!
Actually, I'll give her mine. It's better.
Max, no! Max! Fuck! Fuckity fuck!
Oh my God, Todd, so good.
Oh my God, the afro. Like grown-ups hair.
Swiffer for the mop. There it is. Yeah, good shit. Colby.
The other thing that I wanted to go back to real quick was when he's like, there's someone, Mike is dead in the bathroom. And he goes, he's like, I still have to go.
He plays it like he's so good. I mean, it's like, it's insane.
He was great. If you saw the Joss Whedon Much Ado About Nothing, he was so good in it. Like, and so is Nathan Fillion. And, it was like the usual cavalcade of characters. Like James Gunn has his stable too. Michael Rooker is in his stable as well, and
I love Whedon's stable. I just wish
he was not a fucking fuck. I'm so glad that I never got Buffy tattoos and stuff. Like the only the only real tattoo I have, well, I have real tattoos, but the only one that I've ever said I'll put on my body is the Umbrella Academy, because I hope Gerard, because don't ever be problematic Gerard way, or I'll come out fucking prison style with like a scrubby brush. But Colby looks great. He's gonna have so much fun in college.
Oh my God. Yeah.
You better did you give him like a
what?
Did you give him the talk about the condoms and all that stuff?
Wow.
Yeah, he's versed in all
this. I mean, like he's a freshman. He's away from home. Girls everywhere. Like, he's gonna that freshman. My freshman year was nuts.
Wow. Okay, we just learned something about longtime listener, also a frequent guest. He has 4 orphan black tattoos. Jeff, with your health, yes.
4 orphan black tattoos. That's dedication. I only have one tattoo. I have a tattoo of Ryan Reynolds' torso on my torso. When I take my shirt off.
Wow, dude. Wow.
I look fucking great. And I'm funnier somehow.
I wonder if their budget was mostly those explosions. Because like the janitor explosion, and then Frank goes, I did not see that on Wikipedia. Like Wikipedia did not tell me that would happen. But like the explosion, I mean, that couldn't have been cheap.
So if you guys haven't seen the movie, what Crix is rightfully pointing out, which is another, I think, kind of great moment of writing, is like, yeah, usually you stake a vampire and you kill him and whatever. But in this movie, it's like they get staked and then they just explode like blood bladders. So the actors get coated in blood as they go. And it was, again, with that, oh yeah, Wikipedia didn't mention that. And it's just, but it's thrown off like this, like, again, it's like stoner comedy at its best. It's
yes.
Just like, oh my God, that's so brilliant. Because I haven't seen that before. They had no money, and then yet they're doing the blood bladder psych gag. And you're like, major freaking props to that situation. Yeah, it's just great. So
I love that point that this is stoner comedy, by the way, because there's very little like drug use in this movie. It's not, like you say stoner comedy, people think Cheech and Chong and Seth Rogen.
Was the janitor was the only person I think smoking a joint, right? Like I think
there's not a lot of,
but it's not. It's a mentality, right? It's the level of comedy of like Save Pedro, whatever, Bo Pedro. It's like there's certain things that transcend, and it's like they know who their audience is, and they're plugging in. And I think they're being quite clever. I mean, that's not a put down. I mean, it's like I love like one of my favorite bits in True Romance, which I actually think is one of Tarantino's best scripts. Is like Brad Pitt is like, don't condescend to me, man. What? Cleaning products, and you're like, he steals the movie. And like in a world where Gandolfini's beating up on our girl, and you're like, what? And you're like, Brad Pitt is a stoner with the honey bear is like,
and he offers the fucking and they're like, nope. Like,
oh yeah, man, they're going here.
So what are you gonna do if you're high? You're so high that you're on your chair, and then 2 fucking mafiosos walk in. What are you gonna do? It's like I'd be the same way. I'd just be like, do you want a puff? Can I get you a glass of water?
There is zero nudity in this film. Jeff is correct.
I think that's a good point because in olden days and sometimes now, indie filmmakers try to ape the old exploitation of the 80s, which this certainly could have done, and it doesn't. And I think that's a good choice because
I also like about this is that you've got a guy who thinks he should be running things who gets not promoted. You've got his best friend who's like, dude, I was hoping you get it so I can continue to do nothing. And then you've got like the really smart, well-meaning, if a little crazy security guard guy, who drinks Red Bull and, sniffs pens or whatever. But like, and then they confront with, we don't remember your name. And then you've got your guy, who gets to stake the dude. And this is the first time we understand that there's the explosion where they all get like, and the filmmakers are having so much fun with this. It's just delicious.
But I'm thinking I'm wondering if this is like a one and done take, or it's like we got enough for 2 takes. I mean,
hope to God it was one and done for everybody.
That's a really good question, and I'd love to hear the answer. Maybe the director of
I've always been fascinated by that, where there's scenes where it's just like, and then it's like, do they say, okay, go take a shower and we're going to do a second run? Or,
right.
I guess that's where the budget comes in.
I did this movie that the producers of American Pie did, like that had a lot of gross out humor. And Allie Landry, I don't know if you know who she is. She was the she was the Doritos girl in the late 90s.
Mario Lopez's ex-wife.
Yeah, that
like
lady.
Miss America or Miss USA or something.
Yeah, so they have this like
usually corn syrup.
Yeah,
there was this scene with an exploding hamster where they had this like a pressurized tube where the like dead hamster guts would spray out. And they did it a lot. And at a certain point, poor Allie, like became upset because she was getting hard hit in the face with like gore. And there's stuff in there and it's hits your face enough times. And it's like you're being slapped over and over. And eventually she'd had enough. And I was like, oh, okay. So that's how this works in these movies. So it is more than one, but I don't know with this because it's super low budge. So.
Super low budge. But I
feel they had to have spent like half their budget just on the actors. I mean, like,
yeah, but also,
yeah, that's true.
But I would also say because this film is a 8 years plus maybe some change ago, like you could build this cast today. I think a lot of these people have gone on TV work, the quotes, probably couldn't get this kind of a great cast on this kind of a budget. Certainly you wouldn't get, Pascal anymore. But like, I also feel like, one of my favorite, obviously going back to Alien, because it wouldn't be me if I couldn't reference it. But the original, the famous chest burster sequence, everybody had read the script. Everybody understood the assignment. Yes, there's going to be a chest burster that comes out of Kane. But the way that the actors were all told was just, we're going to do the thing. We'll figure it out later, whatever. They didn't know they were going to do practical effects. John Hurt did, but the rest of them did not. And Veronica Cartwright Lambert happened to be positioned where she gets them. So Ridley knew what he was doing. So you have multiple coverages in the one and done. And she got the full blood batter. And that's what it's like, the great shot. He's like, ah! And she turns it slow. It's so beautifully done. It's like Jackson Pollock, by Ridley Scott, right? But like literally you're like, holy shit. And it was shocking to the actors, and Ridley wanted that intentionally. Not that he didn't trust that amazing cast to act, because the only one who really didn't have the credits was Sigourney. Everybody else was like, right? But it was so shocking in real life because of the blood bladder situation and the way he set it up, that as they were great actors, but they were also shocked because they weren't let in on that. But
it's hard to get. I learned this lesson a long time ago. But I worked with John Voight on Ray Donovan.
Next.
And he and I had this whole conversation. And I'm here to say that John Voight is a very professional actor. In my experience, I knew walking into this show that this guy's insane because I've seen his YouTube videos. But on set, you wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know it. I was talking to a friend about like Dennis Quaid. It's sort of out that he's, right wingy, but he still works, and you got James Woods saying, I'm not working because of my politics. Well, guess what, James Woods? It's not your politics because John Voight and Dennis Quaid are still working. So there's something...
those three could do the not funny remake of Three Amigos.
Yeah, sure. And there's also Neil McDonough, who's like a super Catholic that he will not kiss. He's like, I've been fired from jobs because I refuse to kiss or do any love scenes. And now he's I don't know, like he's kind of going down this cycle because he's doing faith-based movies with Kevin Sorbo now that are just that pop up on Amazon Prime because you can find anything.
He does a lot of the Christian propaganda movies now.
But you know who was a really hot heartthrob and has an Oscar and continues to work and always will because #he's awesome, and who also doesn't do love scenes by choice? Denzel Washington. So I would say people who are like, I don't work because, anyway, so no.
Yeah. But, I mean, Denzel, he never talks about his personal perspectives for the most part.
But it's on record with Pauletta and his wife and why he shies away from love scenes and big blockbusters back in the day.
But he's A-list. He can do that. It depends on your...
But he does it because he's a Christian.
He does it for the same reason.
Denzel Washington.
But he still will get big paycheck movies over someone like Neil McDonough, right? Because Denzel's proven. He's got 2
Denzel could have. I would argue like Brad Pitt could have kept doing Legends of the Fall 2, 3, 4, and 5, but then does 12 Monkeys. like he doesn't always go there, and Denzel purposely had said, I don't want to do that. Like he famously turned down Seven. He was supposed to be the Brad Pitt role. He's like, it's too dark for me. And then he saw the movie. He's like, I was wrong. I should have worked for Fincher, right?
Right. And so that's why, like, some
But,
people
like,
say, I don't do this, I don't do that. And that's fine, because John Heater and Patrick Fugit in the beginning,
yeah,
they're both Mormons, had said, I will not swear. I don't swear in movies. And then eventually they both did start being okay with swearing in movies. And John Heater's, I think, was the movie he did with Mark Ruffalo and had a Cure song, was the Just Like Heaven, I think is what it was called.
Oh, the Bad
yeah.
Witherspoon movie.
Yeah. And John Heater was like the friend or whatever. But he's definitely like pulling away from the. I mean, he's always going to be Napoleon Dynamite. It doesn't matter. I mean, he's got a fucking day Idaho still, and I'm from Idaho.
Iconic.
So, yeah, so he's always going to have that be iconic. And what's funny about those two is that they're both twins, Efren Ramirez and John Heater. John Heater's brother used to work at Warner Brothers in the video games department. And so there was one night where their brothers went out together and people thought that it was Napoleon and Pedro. And it's like, no, it's not us.
I just want to say really quickly for the record, because, you know, this is a live show. Like casting directors, producers, anybody who's watching this right now, I'd like to say that I am willing to make out with whoever. I will curse. I will do drugs. I will do the darkest shit imaginable. So if your John Heaters and your Denzel Washingtons aren't stepping up, you know, just call. Just give me a call.
By the way, I feel like what we need is another Bad Lieutenant remake. Todd,
yes,
Ginger Bad Lieutenant. Ginger Bad Lieutenant.
Bad Lieutenant.
Stop your bad biases, people.
Call Herzog. Call Ferreira. They can direct it together.
Call Herzog. Let's do that. I'm saying that for my buddy Todd.
Thank you, Tracy.
I'm just saying. I mean, by the way, I would so kill to see that. But God, maybe if we can raise enough money, we can make it. But I'm just saying. But the thing about this movie, and I do want to give. Oh wait, you're remaking a movie to start. That movie should be Money Pit. Oh my God, yeah, seriously. Mr. Blanding builds a dream house. Cary Grant, the first time around, which for our generation was Tom Hanks doing the same movie.
I'd rather do a remake of The Burbs, but I'm fine with The Money Pit.
Okay, The Burbs is everything. We agree with that. Let's finish wrapping up the movie. So, the violence, we're freebasing like Red Bull. It's a thing.
He's shotgunning Red Bull. It's great.
We have some pretty good zombie makeup. Again, when you don't have money to do zombie work like this, I want to give it props. We've got the establishment here, and then we've got we're not going to manage this way anymore, and then it's a bloodbath, and then we do a little Dawn of the Dead on the cheap. Once again, Mr. Pascal owning his shit. Then he gets wiped out. This is Pedro with, again, a paper cutter in his head with like red eyes. It's all good. But these guys get to make out with a lot of syrup. And we all get to walk home, the best friend.
Oh, yeah. And his mom is still on the phone, and he's like, you heard all that?
Oh, God. Sorry, Mom. I didn't discuss. Another
because
great
he's got his first sale of the month with his mom.
Two grace notes. This is a very smartly written script. It's a little stoner forward. We no judge, but like it's so much better than it needs to be. And I have to say, Chris, when I watched this, I was like, oh my God, how did I miss this movie? Thank you for finding this movie. Part of what I love about this show that Todd and I just do every Wednesday, because really we're just nerds. We want to talk to each other about great movies with our guests. This is exactly what this show is for, where we can boost things. If both of us haven't seen it and we both like it, we're like, fuck yeah. And the fact that you brought this, I love this. And I feel like if most people probably haven't seen this movie, so maybe anyone listening to this will want to seek it out. Crick, sum it up for us. Like, make your case for why people should seek this film out and watch it and what you love about it. You found it, we think, during the pandemic. Watching it again, maybe. What do you think? Like, talk to us about like the takeaways for you.
Well, outside of the spicy language, I mean, I find this movie suitable for 13 and up, because I mean, they watch, hey, Snake Plissken, they watch Euphoria now and stuff that I'm too embarrassed to watch because
thank you.
I'm a type person.
This
movie is totally suitable. I mean, I don't know, if your family likes to swear, then it's a family movie. But I mean, it's like you can go into this movie and not feel any collateral damage coming out of this movie, but you also kind of get a lesson in how business works. It's like The Big Short or the other guys. If you ignore all the I think the other guys, I feel horrible that this movie didn't get, because they just expected all this comedy. It's like, you have to look under all this comedy to find out what's going on. And that's why the end credits of that movie are so important, because they're basically telling you how this housing crash started, and how everybody's fucking over their employees, and how Enron did this and under the, and then under Maggie.
I want to give a shout out, because Charles Randolph, who got the Oscar for writing that, somebody I was lucky enough to work with, he's the real deal. His ability to take subprime mortgage failure and turn it into an actionably fun 3-act structure for a movie is
Adam McKay too. It's just
Adam McKay. The idea of putting Margot Robbie in a bubble bath going with her champagne, hello, so subprime mortgage. I was like, I think I've learned something.
Yeah, and Selena Gomez explaining the how things get broken up while playing poker, and it's
brilliant. It's brilliant.
Yeah, this movie is definitely like, if you go below the whole zombie aspect, you're seeing how well these kind of businesses run, especially like telemarketing, and how there is this pressure. And then, but also there's people that don't do fuck all day and somehow don't manage never to get fired, which is like, why can't I have that job? Like,
because they're all white men in this movie. That's the guys.
That was weird, but I also liked, in a sense, it was because they all kind of got theirs.
Yeah, no, I agree, Chris. I agree. This is a white boy movie, but it is a white boy movie about white boys who are mostly complete douchebags.
Yeah.
And they're played that way, and that's what's funny about them as characters, and I know some people might watch this and be like, wow, it's too broy. And I'm like, no, it's making fun of broy. It's making fun of broy.
Yeah, I mean, like when they're trying to throw like wads of paper into Elaine's hair, like those kind of assholes.
Yeah. Total douchebags.
I think this is the thing I love, and it's I think if horror comedy hybrid movies are tough, I think doing comedy that is super, I don't know, I'm going to create a phrase. I don't think this is a real thing, but let's pretend it is. Stoner forward. But that also works for those of us who are not. It's clever, it's smart, and what I appreciate as a producer, I can see where they didn't have the money. I can see how they covered it up. And Todd knows it, because I mean, we've Hot Fuzz Sizzy. It's like, I have so much mad respect for people who just make these independent films. This is way better than it needed to be. It's actually quite smart. It works on several levels. It's not a shitty film. It's one of those things where I'm like, you know what? If Fox Searchlight treated this film the way they did Mike Judge when he was doing Office Space, which bombed, but was great and is now a cult classic because it's super smart and also has things to say we should learn from. If the filmmakers of this film had the resources of that film, he could have leveled it up, and it works without it. And that is not a hard thing to do. It's a really hard thing. It's not something we should take away from. It's like, it's funny, it's gross, it works on a lot of levels. That's a good thing. And more of this, please. Let's fund this, and maybe not like Marvel 27, whatever.
Yeah, and then plus they do kind of the gratuitous, but not really, because you did get boobs. They were just in a bra.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
boobs, but it wasn't exploitative on that level, which I think is part of the reason that the movie works. One thing I love about these kind of low budget movies, especially when you're talking about comedy, and I think this happens in comedy the most when you're talking about movies with this amount of money, is you have no choice as a filmmaker but to lean on your cast, who is probably not taking a lot of money, but you're paying them. But that's, like you said before, that's where a lot of the budget's going, is into the actors. So you lean on them to be funny and to fill in all the space, in between plot points and story developments. And it's fun to watch. And I wonder how much, of the dialogue in this movie was written, how much it was played with. I would be curious to find that out.
Yeah, and I also just feel like it's so hard to make a movie, you guys. It really is. And these storytellers, these filmmakers, all got together. They had not a lot of money, and they did something that, like, you can watch it out of time. This is like 8-9 years old now, and yes, Pedro might get you here, so maybe you'll watch it because he's awesome and he is awesome in this, but everybody is awesome in this. And we need more of this. And I'm a good Gen Xer and I'm a film buff, so I'm just going to continue to proselytize here. We grew up, all three of us here, in a world where Michael Caine can make a movie called, let's pull it out of the air, Water. And I rode my bike to see it at the local theater. Water? No one's talking about that movie. I remember it because I was like, Michael Caine's in a new movie. I must go. I mean, as every 13-year-old did, I'm sure, in the 80s. What I'm saying
I saw that in the theater. What a weird movie.
It was so fucking weird. But, like, here's the thing, though. It's like we used to be able to tell stories. We don't need to spend so much money to tell the great stories. And sometimes, I'd go back to early Hollywood. Like, I love screwball comedies. I love screwball comedies because I think they're the height of wit and sophistication, and they're delicious. And they were usually black and white. And in terms of the way they were photographed, everyone looked gorgeous. 20th century Carol Lombard, like Lady Eve, Barbara Stanwyck, anything with Jean Arthur, anything.
Born Yesterday with Judy Holliday.
Judy Holliday, who won Best Actress in 1950. What? Pulling that out of my ass. I would argue two of the best performances of any woman ever. 1950 Oscars, right? You had the great Gloria Swanson as Norma Desmond in Sunset Boulevard, and you had the great Bette Davis as Margot Channing in fucking, like, All About Eve. Not All About Eve. Come on, help me out. And
Baby Jane?
No. Judy Holliday wound up winning because I think Gloria Swanson in All About Eve, Bette Davis, they split the vote and Judy Holliday came in. And Judy Holliday, by the way, I would argue third place. But Judy Holliday with the great voice, like, she got to win.
Bronx voice.
But Gloria Swanson in Sunset Boulevard and All About Eve with Bette Davis, those are iconic characters. We don't talk about Judy Holliday's Born Yesterday. Ironically, speaking of crazy voices, Melanie Griffith, because it was the 80s, would remake Born Yesterday. And no one talks about that remake either. But there was an era of women who did these movies back in the day. And I feel like one of the things I miss, and this shows my age, I'm cool with it, is that once upon a time we had legitimate studios, not streaming. Love you, streaming. Hire me to do your thing. However, we had real studios and we had a pipeline to tell a bunch of stories at the height of the studio system. each studio made at least a movie a week. So you at least had 52 movies a year, right? And so, yeah, not everything was Sunset Boulevard. Not everything was all about it.
There was usually like the same 5 or 6 actors, and like 5 or 6 of the movies that come out
But
that year.
we no longer have a pipeline, and now we have a generation that's Netflix and chill, no shade. And I get it. It's like we've talked about this on the show before. So, like, I would just say this past summer, you know, you had Emily Blunt. We love her. We have Ryan Gosling. We love him. You have IP because that's where Hollywood thinks we're at. The Fall Guy. Together, it did not open. 17 days later, you could stream it. And it worked for most people. The audience score loved it. The reviews were mostly good. And those two people are supposed to be two of our biggest stars. We no longer live in a world where younger generations care about what us Gen Xers did. I'm the person that's like, Sigourney's awesome. Oh, is she in a new Paul Schrader film, Master Gardener? Yes, I will be there opening day with 3 gay men and myself to support that. We don't live in that world anymore. But what I like about this film that Crix brought tonight, just to wrap this up so we can get to our next segment, is like, this is right. This is clever writing, clever directing, an amazing cast on a shoestring budget. And if you haven't seen it, because Todd and I hadn't before Crix introduced us to this film, you should. And it should inspire young writers, young directors, young producers, and actors to say, if you read a script that's this fun, this joyful, that's obviously referencing things that are cool filmically, say yes. Add your talent to this and go for it. And it's a joy. And the fact that this film is 8 or 9 years old, we can do it again. So please watch this film. Crix, thank you for bringing it to us. Todd's going to put this shit up, and we're going to go into our lightning round of goodness.
Okay.
Yeah, here we go.
I just want to say real quick to any filmmaker out there, I got 2 words for you: forced perspective. You can make anything look big. You can make anything look small. Forced perspective. Like I used to work for a streaming TV service, and the building was. This is my little thing. Our building was our landlord was Mel Brooks, but it was our office. Where our streaming was literally like the waiting room. Was where the guests were. There was like the holding room, snack room, whatever, and then the other side is like usually where the one office guy is, and he had all the stuff in his computer thing and then a desk in front, but it looks huge. It looked like a big room. And so, I mean, you can even practice that with theater as well. If you can, like blocking out a theater, like a layout for like, this goes here, this goes here, this goes here. It's always great to learn and definitely forced perspective too. Because what I liked about what he did with that was exactly that. I mean, that supply closet couldn't have been that friggin' big, but he made it look bigger.
Yes.
And even though the office was huge, he concentrated on like so many characters, but you knew that office was huge because you would see a whole bunch of the background, and you saw them, I think, like twice. Once in the beginning and once towards the end when they were all busted. Yeah. I mean, there's ways to save money and don't be afraid to go look at office buildings. Obviously, I was like, this would be cool if he was like, yeah, my friend worked at this office building and he was a manager. But if that's not the case, I mean, you can rent out office buildings. It's not or office floors and office space and stuff like that. But definitely learn forced perspectives because you don't want to find yourself. Or learning how to force perspectives because you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you thought it was going to work and it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Let's do Be Bad or Be Best. Tracy and I are going to present titles of movies, and Crix, you'll get to judge whether they're so bad no one should see them, or they're so bad it's awesome and everyone should see it. Tracy, do you want to start?
I will totally start. Here we go. So keeping on a theme, because Fran, who's the star of the film we talked about tonight, the first time I remember seeing him, he left a huge impression on me because I thought he was actually cast in a movie Jake Kasdan directed back in the day, where it's called The TV Set. I'll put the poster up. The TV Set, for those who haven't seen it, because it was also an indie in its time. The great David Duchovny, Sigourney Weaver, Ioan Griffith, because Horatio Hornblower should have been a star, and I don't know how he screwed that up. Anyway, but the plot of this movie, for those who haven't seen it, and you should totally see it if you haven't, because it's so relevant now with the streaming wars, is like, how does a idea get sold? How does a pilot work? How does it get picked up, and how does it play? And David Duchovny plays the showrunner of this idea he has, and he's like, my brother recently committed suicide in real life. I wrote this very gut-wrenching pilot about suicide and what happens in the aftermath of that. So it's supposed to be like a dramedy, 1 hour or whatever. Sigourney plays the head of the network. Ironically, it was supposed to be Ben Stiller. He dropped out to do another movie, and then they went to Sigourney for two reasons. She's awesome. You should always go to Sigourney. Two, her dad was Sylvester Weaver, who ran NBC. He created the Today Show and the Tonight Show. And they thought, well, she's Sigourney, and her dad really was an innovator in TV. And so when Stiller dropped out, they went to her and they said, we're going to adapt the script. We'll change it to be a girl. Don't worry. And she's like, no, I want to play this as Ben Stiller would. Don't change a word or I won't do it. So somehow when a female head of a network says the same shit that the male guys usually say, I would argue is even funnier, because #awesome. Is it be bad? Is it be best? I don't know, Chris, if you've seen it, the TV Set.
I haven't, but I was just looking at the IMDb, and I would be very interested in it because it reminds me of this show that's now on Netflix called Unreal. And it's basically, I mean, they had to have had people from The Bachelor were like giving them little things, because Unreal basically is the behind the scenes of what happens at a matchmaking show like The Bachelor, but it's called like Everlasting Love or some shit like that. And so you see like, maybe the on-site therapist is not as qualified, or she's just qualified to help, kind of egg these things on, because what a lot of people don't realize about reality TV is that
Scripted.
Producers are there to egg you on. Like they'll say, well, so-and-so said, that's not what so-and-so said. And it's like, oh, what did so-and-so say about me? Because these confessionals, these interviews are done with a producer, and they actually make bets. Especially in this show, Unreal, they make bets. They all pick girls, the girls that were selected, and then as soon as their girls are eliminated, they're done working. That's it for them. And so it's like all the really gross shit that goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah,
you get to see that. And I think with TV Set, the TV Set kind of sounds like the same thing. And it's like, especially if it's gonna be what I think it is like taking advantage of the person who doesn't really know the industry all that well and going, no, this is how we do things. This is how we do contracts. No, we don't need a contract. Good. We don't need that. I trust you. You trust me. Right. And so that's kind of what I think of when I was reading the whole thing. Yeah. I would definitely want to see it for sure.
Yeah. Okay. I would encourage everybody, because I think it's actually a gem. I worked at a company once upon a time. The script came to me when Ben Stiller was attached, and I said, we should do this. And the powers that be did not agree with me. And then a month later, Stiller dropped out because another film went, because indies. And then Sigourney came in. I was like, all I want to do is produce a film, because I think Sigourney is an Oscar. And I was like, oh my God, she's going to do it. And I was like, they're going to rewrite it. And when she came in and said, do not rewrite it. And then I saw the movie. Ioan Griffith, Judy Greer is great in this movie too, but it really talks about the process of going from, and this is before streaming, so it was a process of old school. How do we get from a pilot to production? But there's a little bit of a, which is, I wanted to say this for you, Crix, because I thought you brought this movie tonight that talks a lot about, or is an example rather, of independent film for the good. The TV set is a film that talks about TV, and this is how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
And there, in my bias, because she's Ripley forever aside, and Jeff, you will watch this because I trust you. Sigourney has a monologue. If I were an actress of a certain age, I'm now this age, my monologue would be Sigourney's monologue from the TV set, where she's driving her Range Rover, talking to her newly hired BBC executive, Ioan Gruffudd. Let me talk to you about this near-death experience I had. And she does this thing, and I'm like, I don't know why she didn't win an Oscar for this. Like, it's so fucking smart, the way I think Crix brought this movie that is really very smart tonight.
It's like nice.
Watch it.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, we have such a nice exposure now of, it's still slow getting there, of more senior women in starring roles, and people are paying attention. Like David Zayas's wife, God bless me, I can't think of her name, but you know, she's the first Latina to win an Emmy.
Yeah,
you know, and you've got like Jean Smart. Like Jean Smart's another.
Shogun just won Emmys.
Yeah, she's the one. She's another one that I'm like, oh, she's in it. Okay, cool. I'm
Jean Smart for the age.
Yeah. And speaking of which, I think they missed a golden opportunity when they were doing all those little reunions on the Emmys. Designing Women, Annie Potts.
That's a good note. Yeah.
I was like, she's right there. Like, why was there stuff?
You're right. You're right. Okay.
My Nana loved Designing Women. I watched that show with my Nana all the time.
Vampire Lawyer Anderson, have you seen the TV set?
I saw the TV set when it first came out on physical media, and I was excited to watch it, and I honestly don't remember very much about it. I remember thinking it was stilted and slow. But that was a different time. That was a different time. I could like it now. I don't know.
Watch it now, kids. Watch it now. All right.
Yeah, we'll see.
Your go.
I stuck with the corporate horror comedy thing, and Be Bad or Be Best. Mayhem, directed by, I don't know, a guy named Joe, I think, and starring Stephen Yeun, who was in Lost. Was he Lost? Something like that. And Samara Weaving, who's in Ready or Not, and is delightful.
He was in The Walking Dead. He was Glenn.
The Walking Dead. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Yeah. So, Crix, have you seen this? Be Bad or Be Best for you?
I saw this a long time ago because it came out like in 2007.
Yeah.
And I think I watched it, because Joe Lynch directed it, and he's someone that I know and I adore. Joe Lynch did Wrong Turn.
Mm-hmm.
He's a great horror director, but it's like Joe Lynch is very clever when it comes to horror movies, because even like Wrong Turn and Wrong Turn 2, and they did that not Chillerama, Monster. I can't remember what it was called. Damn it! And I was in it.
Oh, Chillerama. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
With a little vignette.
Slime balls at the Chillerama. Something.
No. This was a movie that it was Joe Lynch, Adam Green. But this was it was little vignette horror movies like you would see, and I for the God life of me, I can't remember what it's called. It's like Monster-rama or something. It was a Dread Central thing, but this is another time where guys, and this is why I appreciate guys like Joe Lynch and Adam Green, is because they always have Asians in their movies. Like Adam Green, he had Perry Chen. I think Perry Chen showed up in every Hatchet movie.
Right, he plays different parts.
Yeah, I think he plays like the twin brother in the last Hatchet, and then you've got Stephen Yeun, who, you know, like I got to admit, when Glenn died, when
that was fucked up. That's when I fucking stopped watching that.
And that's when I checked out too, was when Glenn died, and I think a lot of people did, and that speaks a lot to him and his and the way that he brings out characters, because he also did a movie called Minari where he plays a father, and so Stephen Yeun is one of those guys where it's like he's a good Korean, and you know, and as a Korean, I appreciate it when a man is a good Korean man. And he's representing Koreans, and he's representing Asian Americans everywhere, you know. And so when he makes a movie or he's in a movie, it's, you know, you're not like eek, except for maybe 21 and over, but that was because oh no, that was my friend Justin Chon from Twilight, because 21 and over, the Chinese, I don't know if you guys ever heard about this, but
I saw that,
had financed it, so they made 2 separate versions of 21 and over. The one that we got, where he's like, Dad, I don't want to be in med school, blah, 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 blah. And Dad's like, okay. The Chinese version is that he realizes that he fucked up, and he sees the errors of his ways, and he goes back to China.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's true. Google it. There's two different cuts. I even think they said that on their IMDb. But, you know, and Samara Weaving from Ready or Not, The Babysitter, like, you can never go wrong with. She just works so well with everyone.
Yeah,
that you really just can't go wrong with it.
And she works in the genre films. I hope she keeps doing them. I mean, I hope she gets too big to do genre films, but I hope she doesn't stop doing genre films. Is that an okay thing to wish for somebody?
Yes.
Because I recommend The Babysitter and The Babysitter 2 all the time.
Yeah, they're fun. Very fun.
Absolutely.
Trace, what's your feeling on Mayhem?
I saw it when it first was a thing. Loved the cast. My memory, I haven't seen it since, but my memory was I really liked it. And I remember, I think it was the first time I really paid attention or knew who Steve was. So I was like, oh, and I just remembered thinking, this guy is top lining this movie. What's the problem? Like, why am I not seeing him more? And so to the degree that Walking Dead, not to the degree, I mean, biggest TV show internationally.
Walking Dead was one of the first times that we saw an Asian person that didn't have an affected accent, that wasn't a stereotypical dude. Okay, yeah, he was a little bit of a nerd, but it wasn't like full blown, like, you know, Toshi from like Revenge of the Nerds. It was just, you know, he's
no, but I don't know. I like nerds. I'm a nerd. I love nerds. But no, my memory of this was I haven't seen it since it came out, but I remember thinking, this is cool. Who's that guy? That was my memory. I was like, wow. And when I saw Walking Dead, I was like, oh, that guy. Like, that was my link.
I was super happy to like this movie when I saw it, because I'd already seen the Belko Experiment, and this sounded like the Belko Experiment again. And I love the Belko Experiment.
Who did the Belko Experiment? Was that
the Australian guy, McLean? He did Wolf Creek.
Okay,
Greg McLean or McLean. I don't know how you say it in Australia. It's a very fun movie, and if you don't mind too much of a good thing, Belko and Mayhem together, you know, it's kind of a perfect double feature.
Plus you've got like, and it's funny because you look at the cast, and it's mostly like people from James Gunn's stable.
Because James Gunn, I think might have written it or co-written it,
presented it or something. I think it was like something.
Yeah, it was a James Gunn thing. For sure.
Yeah, because you've got Sean Gunn, his brother, who's brilliant, and found and it's like funny because it was like nepotism. I'm like, motherfucker, he was famous before his fucking brother James. He was doing
It's different. It's different. Brother nepotism and like sibling nepotism. I'm like, I don't know. It just seems like two people at the same time.
Yeah, he did his shit all by himself, and then it was
when your daddy or your mommy your job.
But it's weird. Nah, I mean, because he was on Gilmore Girls and stuff. But like, you look at stuff like that, and like Rooker, and then John Gallagher, who doesn't get enough roles, and then Tony Goldwyn.
He's picky though, because I tried.
And don't forget, a friend of the show, Rusty Schwimmer, is in the Belko.
Rusty,
not like real Rusty Schwimmer, like the actress Rusty Schwimmer.
The actress
did our Friday the 13th Uber special.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to swear, but I fucking love you, Rusty.
Yeah.
I fucking love you. I like you. Her and Margot Martindale are like the
oh, that's your buddy cop movie or TV series. Thank you very much.
I love that.
I would love to work with like Ann Dowd,
yes,
and Margot Martindale, and I just like we could do our own like Yaya sisterhood or something.
I will be first in line for that.
Hey Trace, let's do when bad films happen to good actors.
Oh, I have one for that.
Do you have one? You can go, or I can go. Either way.
Yes,
I will go first. I feel, again, in a world where everything is blowing up and evil, like I understand this is a first world problem, but I'm really fucking offended still, even though this was early aughts. If you waste my two favorite final girls, Jamie Lee Curtis and Sigourney Weaver, much less in the same fucking film, I'm going to say you are a prime candidate for when bad films happen to great people. And here's the cast, y'all. You again, unwatchable. Sigourney Weaver, Jamie Lee Curtis, that's all you need to know. But you also, the last time Betty White appeared on the big screen is in this disaster. And I like Kristen Bell too. You again, one of my favorite things about this, and I do not play favorites. I love Jamie Lee. I love Sigourney Weaver. Sigourney's 9 years older than Jamie Lee, but this film cast both of them as if they were in high school at the same time being, and Sigourney bullied Jamie Lee. No one questioned it. I'm just saying sometimes Sigourney looks a lot younger than other people. And then they have daughters who are getting married. So you have two generations of women dealing with high school bullies. Sigourney bullied Jamie Lee. Kristen Bell was bullied by this chick that her brother is marrying, and all things happen. It's a terrible film. I just want to point out, and I did an extra still because hashtag they're my favorites. If you have these two women pretending to be the same age, and I don't think no one questioned it because hashtag Sigourney forever. If you waste these two women in the same romantic comedy, that's on you. And so
that's dumb.
These two are ridiculously awesome. Laurie Strode, Ellen Ripley, to some of us who are Gen Xers.
When you first started talking about this, Tracy, by the way, I was like, wait a sec. I don't remember Sigourney Weaver being in Eli Roth's Borderlands.
Oh, that was last week, yo. But here's my thing, though. This film is so bad, but yet Sigourney and Jamie Lee are so amazing. They get to be on screen together. But this film is so tragic. It deteriorates into a moment where they're dressed up and they both get into a swimming pool and they get into a fist fight. And I'm like, I would kill to work with either one of these women, much less two of them. And I would never do that. I think they are amongst the best of us, and they every time either one of them makes a movie, no matter how bad it is, I go pay to see it in the theaters when I can. I think this is the perfect example. And Betty White that she went out on this, it's like Gene Hackman is going to go out on Wellport. It makes me upset. So I'm just saying
that's more upsetting because Gene Hackman's still alive and he could come back.
He doesn't want to.
I know he doesn't. He wants to write crime novel.
To me, the great cast when bad films happen to great people.
I get it. I will never see this movie.
I love
it. I'll do mine. This is a movie. It's not a corporate horror comedy, but it's got like some corporate elements to it. And it's called Urge. And Pierce Brosnan is the featured actor.
The rapist and the guy who was in Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah. And more importantly, I'm not worried about Pierce Brosnan in this thing. He worked for a day, maybe two. He's fine. I don't care. This isn't a bad movie happening to him. This is a bad movie that paid him a shitload of money for very little work. And yes, Danny Masterson is in it. Obviously, I could give a fuck about a rapist. The actor
and his brother were so problematic that, like, his brother Chris, it was on Malcolm in the Middle, was not allowed to hang out with the other kids because he was so much older than them, and even Bryan Cranston was like, yeah, those Masterson kids, they're
no good. Yeah. So anyway, the actor who I feel bad, who is in this movie, is star of You're the Worst, Chris Gere. And I'm a sucker for movies about people who, like, whether it's they take the drugs themselves, or the drugs are in the milk, or the drugs are in the air, and the drugs make everybody murder each other. Big fan of that kind of concept.
So the thing where like everything was like themselves, like type of thing. You like those, like where they like wipe themselves out?
Yeah, like movies like The Crazies, George Romero's The Crazies, and the remake, which I also think is great, and Impulse with Tim Matheson. These are fun B movies. So the concept works for me and carries me through this movie, but it is like to earlier points about blood-sucking bastards. This movie is very exploitative and gross. And you do get to see Danny Masterson tied up and fucking tortured. So there's something in there, but beyond that, it's just kind of offensive. And poor Chris Gere does a great performance. He's like the only element of comedy in it at all. And the poor guy is, because he's on the urge and he thinks he's a badass. He's trying to lift too much weight and he drops the weight and it smashes his head. And it's bloody all over the wall. It's a really bad movie, and it seemed, given some of the people involved, it seems like it was kind of unpleasant. So I felt bad for Chris.
I hope everybody got a new house out of it.
I don't know. He just got to work. I'm pretty sure they shot this in the UK, so he got to work at home, on an off season of You're the Worst. So, you got him more money, so that's good. I don't feel bad for working actors, but you know what I mean. I don't think he cared for this movie too much either. So there you go. All right, finally, we'll end on a positive note. Tracy and I are going to boost films.
Really? Can I start with a negative note real quick?
Oh, yeah.
What is the deal with the Academy putting The Bear as a comedy? I love The Bear, but The Bear is a comedy like Schindler's List is about typewriters. It should not have been in the and it's just like The Martian. So it's like, are the studios submitting them as comedies, or is the Academy deciding it's a comedy?
No, it's submitted by the producers in the categories, and they all think they submit themselves for what they think is their best shot. What I love about this is the Hacks is clearly the better show. Period.
Thank you.
Period. Hacks is so much better than The Bear, especially this season. Number two, it's an actual comedy. And just because Hacks has depth and some drama aspects, it is funny forward. The Bear is not. And I like that they got called out. It's like, to your point,
They even got caught out in the middle of the fucking show.
To your point, the Golden Globes were the assholes who were like, The Martian's the best comedy of the year, and you're like, no. So it's like it's all manipulative.
I think that as far as awards categories are concerned, and this may be actually true just more largely about the genre, but when they don't know how to classify something, they call it a comedy, even when it's not.
Like my friend said when I was like, when I made that quote, he goes, how could this be a fucking oh, no, sorry. How could this be a fucking
drama? So they submitted it as a comedy. That's what happened.
Right. But my friend said, after I posted, he said, how could this be a comedy when every fucking episode leaves me like with severe anxiety at the end? So he's like, I don't understand.
I don't know. I honestly, when I watched I Love Lucy as a kid, every fucking episode of that made me anxious. Lucy made me anxious. Like she had the chocolates and the conveyor belt. She was always getting herself into trouble.
The Vegemin when she got all wasted on TV.
It always concerned me. It made me laugh, but I was also anxious. There's a thing there, but I don't think the bear is that. But let's boost some movies. I'll go first, Tracy, just to mix it up. Here's my boost. It's another corporate horror comedy from the region of the United Kingdom. It's called Severance.
Seen that. It's awesome.
It's so good. It's a slasher movie, but it's like a corporate retreat in the woods and they all get slashed. It's so much fun. Talk about a great cast. The actors are amazing.
100%.
Yeah. Trace, do you agree? Yeah.
Yes.
You're a Severance person.
An underseen and
underappreciated movie. Yeah, I totally agree.
No, 100%.
All right, awesome. We've boosted things. We've ended on a positive note.
My boost. I got one boost.
All right.
My boost. I'm kind of I guess flipping the script. It's not a movie, but it is something in service to films, and because some of us, our favorite holidays are Halloween. Anything that prepares us to go into the Halloween season, I want to boost. And so I'm going to be just self-referential right now because Shudder has an original series called Horror's Greatest Movies to Die For. The great Kurt Sayanga, who I was lucky to work with on my Through the Wormhole with Morgan Freeman, he was our number 2. He wasn't the showrunner, but he did so many of the amazing episodes. And Kurt is a former punk rocker, loves Pliskin. Hi, Pliskin.
Hi, Pliskin.
He loves horror movies through his soul. And Shudder, he did 101 scariest movies for Shudder. He did the Ely Ross series. This is his next series. We're on episode 4 that are live on.
They're on now, right now.
They're on now, and I'll just put it up right here. Horror's Greatest. The first episode, everyone should watch. He does the horror tropes where he makes fun of and points out old things. The final girl tripping in the woods, blah, 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 blah. But he does it from a very high-end scholarly thing. And if you, like everybody who I hope is watching my favorite shitty movie, loves horror films and slasher films, he gets more bang for the buck because he has like so much free use film clips. If you watch this new series, you will see 30 to 40 films in every hour he puts in there. And if you're building your own, because I do my own horror list. It's my thing, where I watch 31 movies in the month of October. Sometimes it's 3 or 4 a day to get through it because I work during the week, but whatever. 31 movies, and I post them each day. If you're looking for things you haven't seen, if you're looking for a refresher, if you want to be turned on by films that maybe you've never heard of, if you watch Kurt's, again, putting it up right now, Horror's Greatest, every freaking episode, you want to take notes. And if you haven't seen every film he talks about, write it down. Trust me, believe me later, and seek those films out. It is a film buff as showrunner show. And if you're looking for your list for Halloween, this series alone will remind you of what you haven't seen or tell you to watch it again. And I just want to give Kurt Sayanga mad props. The man is an officer and a gentleman, and he loves fucking movies. And he does some stuff in the editing of this, because he's very hands-on with editing, that are delicious and fun and subversive. And I want to lift his series. It's on now.
I'm going to leave right now and start watching the series.
You are going to love episode 1 is everything.
I love a listicle series. You know what I mean? Where it's just like,
yeah, but sometimes it's done right, because it's like Mojo does these listicles and then they leave stuff off, and I'm like, who is doing your research? It's like, I've offered a couple times. I said, I'm a movie critic, and I'm also like, I review comic books and stuff. Like, I would be happy to be a research person for you, because you guys are leaving out so much shit that it's ridiculous.
Actually, Crix, we should talk offline, because I am hoping Kurt's new series gets a second season. If so, I should hook you guys up, because you'll see when he interviews everybody who's establishment to like Brea Grant, Jen Rexler,
I love Brea. Yeah, and I worked at Dread Central for forever, so it's not like I don't know horror.
Brea's in this. Like, she's spot on. Jen Wexler, who we also love, her rendition of The Final Girl from she's probably 10, 15 years younger than I am, but her generation's take on The Final Girl, Kurt gives massive props to. And so if you like horror, you have establishment, younger emerging voices, canon, and some outside the box things. So welcome Halloween with Kurt's series. And I understand people are like, everything's tough and money is tight, but I do believe AMC has like a free whatever. We're 4 episodes in, maybe wait 2 weeks and then do the thing, and you can watch all of Kurt's stuff for free. But you should really be paying for it, because the way they curate those classic films.
Oh, I've had a Shudder subscription since the day they offered it. So
kept me whatever is left.
The good horror thing
during pandemic, that was my go-to. So
that's the great thing about that's the one positive thing I will say about Prime, is that they don't mess with the channels so much. Like BritBox, you know exactly what you're getting. Shudder, like, they still put movies on the Shudder channel that people have not seen. I was like, like Hell House LLC, the director's cut, which is way better than the original, or Gonjam Haunted Asylum, which was an actual place before it got turned down. It got torn down. It was 7 most haunted places in the world, or something like that.
All of it.
And Shudder, they just, if FearNet was still around, I would, like, Shudder is basically taken over what FearNet was. And I still have a FearNet hat. Like, I
love FearNet, but because it's a little bit more.
Yeah, Shudder is like Max for horror people.
Yes, that's a really good way of putting it.
Said it best.
I want to thank one more time Crix Lee for coming on the show, for bringing us Bloodsucking Bastards, which I keep almost calling Bloodsucking Freaks, but that's a totally different.
And what's good about Bloodsucking Bastards too is they do not say Bloodsucking Bastard until almost the end of the movie. It's like one of those moments where Peter Griffin in the theater would be like, "Ha!"
Well, thank you very much, Crix, and thank you all for hanging out with us. Yeah. And we'll see you next week. I don't know what's going to happen.
It's going to be exciting. Watch the page. You don't know. It's Halloween